Hi everyone, so I'm Saptarshi Banerjee. I'm a Senior Solutions Architect in AWS, and today I have Nate with me from Coalfire.
Thanks, Sapto. My name is Nate Dehmuth. I am Coalfire's Vice President of our AI Security and Trust Engineering business.
Okay, so Nate, my first question to you. So what are the biggest misconceptions you see when enterprises start experimenting with LLMs and agents?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we definitely run into problems with this with our clients on a regular basis that we help out with. There's really two big misconceptions that we often see. The first one is an understanding of what a mature architecture looks like when it comes to Gen AI agents and agentic workflows. The other big misconception is how to really define measurable outcomes that you're then going to tie the different elements of that architecture to. So to get a little bit more specific here, though, there's effectively 9 to 10 different layers that we typically define within our framework at Coalfire. We'll start with obviously the most well-known, and that is going to be the model layer. So the model layer is what you would expect. It's the large language model, or as audio, video, different types of models are coming out. But it's really the intelligence, right? This is the intelligence behind how the agent is going to observe, think, reason, plan, act, behave. The next component of the architecture, which we always recommend to keep in mind, is the training data. Understanding what data it was that the model that you're selecting for the particular task or agent was trained on goes a big way in understanding the performance that you're going to get out of the agent. Then over here we have the application layer. The application layer is effectively what it sounds like. It's maybe a front end, it's an API endpoint that is going to effectively catch what is going to go into the agent or field what is coming out of it to send into the architecture or the surrounding users that it's integrated with. Then pulling a lot of these things together is the orchestration layer. So the orchestration is really the backbone of the entire agent architecture. It is accountable for API management, state management, prompt flow, memory, etc. So it's really going to capture a lot of those ongoing logistics at runtime. Then we have a number of layers that we'll pin up here to the top. First and foremost would be the monitoring and filtering. So monitoring and filtering is at runtime, the ability to actually see what is going in and what is coming out of the agent, and then to apply guardrail policies such as content filtering, for example, or identifying maybe any kind of malicious activities that somebody might be trying to perform against the agent or the underlying LLM. The next thing that we'll have up here is our grounding layer. The grounding layer is really, you might recognize it by other terms such as a vector DB or maybe a RAG. Ultimately, it is what it sounds like. It's trying to ground the reasoning and the logic and the outputs or inputs of the agent. For example, you might have a vector DB with your enterprise corporate policies that the agent is going to reference before, as it's going and executing an input or to grade an output. The next component that you'll have is the integration layer. The integration layer is where you'll see things like model context protocol or MCP or agent-to-agent or A2A protocols. This is really the protocol layer that you're going to define and manage as it pertains to your agent talking with other agents or talking to resources and tools that you might be trying to connect it to in the enterprise. The next layer is going to actually be those tools and resources. So we think it's important to define this because you have to understand the agent is going to very much in a lot of ways be limited, especially from a security and privacy perspective, to how you set up those tools on the other side. If you have poor permissions, poor logging, poor encryption capabilities on that side of the fence, that's going to hamper and cause issues with the agent's ability to perform itself. And then we have the infrastructure that all of this sits on. So the infrastructure layer. So this is your traditional networks, right? So this is your virtual private clouds. This is your servers. This is your databases, etc. Everything that is going to, that the agent itself is going to be hosted on, in the infrastructure that's going to run it. And then last but not least, interwoven into all of these is the security layer, right? So for every single one of these, understanding what it takes to establish least privileges, separation of duties, hardening things, applying runtime security.
Thank you, Nate. That's a very detailed explanation. So Nate, my next question for you is, how do you see AWS enabling the scalable and compliant deployment of these architectures?
Absolutely. AWS comes with a lot of capabilities that helps an architect and engineer not only implement this type of architecture and principles, but also to do it at an enterprise scale. The two main service groups that we depend upon for this is the Amazon Bedrock and Amazon Bedrock Core. Agent Core. So within Amazon Bedrock, let's just start there. Within that service grouping, we're offered a lot of different tools that help us accomplish this. First one that comes to mind is the Amazon Bedrock guardrails. This service can be placed into the filtering and monitoring layer and allows us to define a lot of those policies on things like content moderation or traffic for malicious potential traffic patterns that could be taking place within the agent at runtime. The other thing that Bedrock provides is stuff like agents and flow, where we can leverage that within the orchestration layer and provide a lot of management there. Bedrock and Bedrock Agent Core both also allow you to bring your own models in addition to leveraging the AWS on-platform models such as Q and Nova. The knowledge base within Amazon Bedrock, so that allows us to implement things like grounding policies or reference to grounding and take that organizational knowledge and place it into there. Things like Amazon Bedrock Agent Core memory capabilities allow us to actually create multi-agent architectures and expand those agent operations over space and time with reliability. Things like Amazon Bedrock Agent Core's gateway allows us to enable the integrations I talked about with MCP and other agents. There's two different things. There's the built-in tools, and so those kind of serve up everything that is on platform within AWS, but then there's the also ability to define your own custom MCPs to access external tools and resources outside of the AWS ecosystem. And then obviously with all of this, you're getting all of the traditional security and infrastructure capabilities that Amazon brings to bear. Everything from the identity and access management, the logging, the encryption key management, the API security, gateway security, etc.
Thanks, Nate, for the explanation. It's really great how are you leveraging Amazon Bedrock Agent Core to achieve what you're looking for Coalfire. So Nate, last question. So what should leaders take away from this framework if they're just beginning their AI journey on AWS?
Yeah, the biggest thing that an organization needs to do is, again, two big misconceptions. First, understand that this is really what a mature architecture looks like. And when you hear organizations out there struggling to get to production or get to reliability, it's often because they are cheating. They are skipping these different elements within the architecture and not understanding it. The last thing would be the measurable outcomes. When you go into this, you really have to sit back and ask yourself, what are we deploying this agent for? What is it intended to do? And you should be thinking through metrics of accuracy, quality, time, latency, cost, all of these different dimensions, security and performance. And so if you sit back and you think of these different things and you define very measurable outcomes associated with these, and then you pair that with the mature architecture and you understand that every single one of these parts of the agent architecture is a knob or a dial to be able to hone in exactly the types of measurable outcomes that you're trying to achieve. Those are the biggest takeaways that we hope that an organization will get.
Thank you, Nate, for visiting us today and explaining your architecture. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sapto.